Alright, here we go. Let's talk about Shapes too. I had no idea this game existed. I found out a couple of weeks ago. It came out. I started playing it. Mostly, I'm a Factorio player, so this is going to be my perspective from it and kind of just archive the save game, kind of look at what I did. It's my very first game. It's normal and 72 hours, and I did all the infinite sciences and got my ultimate certification. So let's just take a look at that. Um, no messy nexus. Kind of like that. I just throw the trains right in. I've used a lot of the upgrades throughout the game. I wanted to kind of try everything out. The beginning, I had a big mess of belts everywhere connecting to it in the middle. Unfortunately, I had to switch the trains. As mesmerizing as it was to see all of the individual pieces, because my frame rate was absolutely getting destroyed anytime I came close to my nexus, to the point that I couldn't play the game. So we tossed the trains in. Frame rate's pretty good. First of all, let's talk about uh, reference factory. In the beginning of the game, a lot of it is tutorial, so you kind of go through a milestone, make the whole thing, and then the thing becomes useless and it doesn't contribute to anything, tossing it into the Nexus. So I got into the habit of just like deleting when I made stuff, and I would save like stuff that I'd probably think I could reuse elsewhere. And it just started with like a couple of basic things like corners and stuff, and then obviously it grew into a lot of things. Like you'll see these used everywhere. Some of them are properly labeled, some aren't. So who knows what that means? We'll have to find it in the wild to know what mirror and merge B means, or mirror and merge with no letter. Naming is hard, and I'm playing a video game, not doing my job, so names are I slack off. So I'm sorry if things don't make a lot of sense by their labels. But yeah, so most of these pieces are used everywhere. This is the exception. I love circuits, and I was trying to solve a throughput issue where both belts had to be balanced. And I tried all kinds of stuff, but if a developer watches this, it's super annoying that you have a little thing that shows the throughput of the belt in numbers, but then you can't get that value in the wire. It can only read the shape that's going underneath it or send null. Please give us something that reads the speed of it so that we can do proper belt balancing. Um, Other than that, I think the game is great. Uh, kind of sucked me in right away. And let's kind of look at where we at first. So this is flashing. Did pretty good. Um, I think I kind of went too big on all the ratios right from the start. I naively thought that like, oh man, I don't know what kind of ratios and quantities they're gonna ask for me, so I'm just always gonna use as much outputs as I have available. So that means when I increased to the third floor, I had to, make everything that was outputting 8 belts output 12, and things kind of escalated a lot to the point that now every infinite science is sending um, two sets of 12, so 24 belts at max speed of stuff constantly. Uh, so yeah, kind of wanted to show you the pieces that make up the whole first, so that it makes some sense, right? So I mostly separated resources and then glued them together, going through the appropriate pathing. Uh, we'll look in detail at a pretty simple one that's used everywhere. This is just a stacker, right? And usually when you see a stacker, you need something that combines the inputs. And that's over here because I use it a lot. So I have combining inputs from both sides, combining inputs from one side, which satisfies everything because you can mirror blueprints very easily. The blueprint system in this game feels almost akin of something like Photoshop, because like I can just grab this, move it, put it elsewhere. I can duplicate it, put it back, and I can get rid of this one. So very quickly with hotkeys, and makes the game really nice to play. Another thing that I really like gonna use while I go through this is these bookmarks. As you can see, this one's the reference factory. When I started, it was this small, so now I gotta zoom out to see it all. But it's a quick way because you're building out there. You have this reference factory here. Oh, I need this piece or I need that piece. You can click here, come here, and then click on the back button. It takes you back where you were. So this really helps when you're working, across the galaxy. Is this a galaxy? I don't know. But when you're doing stuff pretty far, it's kind of nice to be able to zoom back and forth between locations. You can also do that with the H to go home. So I gotta say the game like feels really nice to play. All right, so let's look at the first Infinite Factory. I call this M1, but it's like actually milestone 4 or 5. I can't actually say, but this one is the first one that's like infinite production, and as you can see, this one is one that you can see that I started at a much lower level. At first, I think it was just these two, and then I had to add another set and another set. Good thing for me is that I built everything with kind of like a bus design. So unless in places where input is coming from both ways, which sometimes I put myself in that situation, but most of it all, the bussing around on items like this will work really well. Um, there's actually a much better way to do this that I found more recently in actually building the last Infinite Factory just now. So I'll talk that about when I get there. But yeah, as you can see here, train stations are empty. That means we're outputting as fast as we can produce. Um, here you can see, I love this. It's so mesmerizing. It was so cool watching all of this going into the vortex. Uh, Again, if a developer sees this, make the train explode or something when it gets into the middle, like exploding all the pieces that has in it, because it's kind of cool to see things getting all sucked in. But yeah, I think this is reliably working, and now you can see, remember the stacker that I showed in the reference factory, there it is at full speed, and right behind it is something combining inputs. And then you have the painters, another thing that's from the reference that I use a lot. And I do recommend that you do this yourself if you play this game, because there's quite a bit of repetition. At one point, you'll be very tired of just redoing the same looking thing, right? And if you keep them organized in these little reusable platforms, I mean, it ends up being a nice way to use it. Um, so let's go look at the second one. A little bit further away, you can see just a normal bus design outputting to a train station. Very simple, these ones. So paint comes from this side, splits into two, and then the materials do the same thing, split into two. I don't know why I did a side design. I was feeling artistic, I guess. Yeah, you can see here is just swapping the other edges so that it becomes the shape that I need. I got quite lucky that I found basically this shape. The milestone requires the opposite, right? So quick swap, and there we go. And then I got lucky because there's this one right here. So this milestone ended up being really easy just because I fortunately had all the materials next to it. I do believe that this is, yeah, they're going well. Let's go look more complicated ones. So here I started mixing colors, and I think in this one, no, this is not the color mixer yet. I'm just using all of the colors. They do look pretty. I think this game has a really cool cell shading look. Yeah, so see again, more of the pieces that you saw in the reference factory. This one just flips them around so they fit nicely. It's quite cool watching the whole resources come around. This one is quite entertaining because basically have to like chop everything around, move pieces around to create the shapes that I want. So you can hear making two emerald corners opposite from each other from that one. So I'm trashing the whole thing except the one little corner. I'm sorry, I know it's not efficient. And I think here I do kind of the similar thing. No, I actually, oh yeah, this is the actual shape. The reason I made the factory all the way out here. Yeah, moving swiftly along. This is the one that introduces pins. And pins are actually very simple. Just gotta make sure you keep the throughput. And then I have another one, which is just two of these in a row, pins twice. It's useful for a couple of recipes. feel like there's not a lot to say because all of these use reusable pieces. But this one has some interesting setups. I want to talk about something here. So I found the shape, right, which basically one original shape generates the two shapes that I need to output, right? And I thought I was being really clever and I made this thing. What does this thing do? This thing cuts them in half and then uses both parts and it splits them and combines them so that if it's eventually one mining stack outputs one of each belt. Really efficient in space, and it was working really well until things start backing up in different ways. So you see the things with stackers is that if a top ingredient is there but the bottom isn't, that top ingredient is going to put back pressure. That means if you're working with fully saturated belts, the moment it stops here, it's going to stop right before the cutter too. That means that if the other side still need pieces to fill in the bottom, but for some reason the top got the resource first, or the belts are shorter in that way, and over time the back pressure was too much, it essentially freezes this whole thing and no more output. And this is where I was spent so much time making this circuit. And this circuit is basically, it looks at the speed here by sequentially lighting this cable up, which goes to this AND. And if there's pieces always coming in, this side is on. And if there's pieces always passing this guy, this side is on. That means that they have similar throughput. There's at least, often enough pieces that this thing becomes on. Otherwise, it outputs 0, everything goes to the trash. This is a terrible solution because it's extremely lossless. So basically every time things back up, this belt dries up. It wastes as much as it can until this belt is not dry anymore, and then it goes again. It solved the problem for a while, but in the end, because it was so lossless that I couldn't fill the belts, I just, I threw away half the shape, and I just have a bigger mining footprint. Yeah, really would like a belt balancer or something to, manage back pressure. That's basically what I'm trying to say. I think that was the one thing that, as a Factorio player, I really missed, like a way to create an overflow splitter. But that's something that, this game is in early access to have plenty of time to make it happen. And then moving on to the last milestone. So I didn't want to talk to this about this. I want to talk around this one. As you can see, this one kind of looks like two factories into one. And that's basically what it is, because at this point I was so tired of, as much as this looks cool, I can't tell you, like, waiting for the belts to fill up, all that is just not fun. And in this one, I started doing the regular way that I've been doing everything. And then I realized that I had to belt this L. And I wasn't in for it, right? And I said, okay, I'm just going to use trains. And trains with things are a lot neater. You do have to build abominations like this, so all the blue comes from this side, and it comes 24 belts worth of it. And I need to, divide these 24 belts of each into these 3. So, fun stuff. Same thing with this side. So it kind of, it looks cool, but this was a nightmare. But at least they're all reusable pieces. I've copied them over. If you're wondering why I didn't use, space belts on this one, is I had this interesting thing with space belts. It was particularly noticeable building this one, where in one side of the belt, it would be like this, fully packed. But then in the belt, you'd see frozen pieces. Like they can't go. And then in the output, it would be coming like at a very low rate. Like most of the belts would be like half full. And I've noticed that has something to do with how long the game's been open. So I had a long playing session when I did the milestone 4. And I think I was on, had the game on without closing or reopening for maybe 6 hours, 7 hours. and all the belts were acting up really well, really weirdly. All of these space belts. So after I noticed that after restarting the game, that all went away, and the belts, as you can see, like now they're working well. But I didn't realize that until I actually had designed this platform with the trains going directly into it. And yeah, so knowing what I know now that the belts are okay after a game restart, I'd probably just do a normal space belt level thing instead of having to do all of this. But it does look cool, right? So yeah, I think that's basically it, right? I get my final qualification. I didn't do all the tasks. I mean, some of these you do them as part of the milestones. Um, yeah, I don't have a lot of interest of doing mechanics that are already learned in the milestones over and over again, and I have no shortage of resource points. Got every upgrade. Now they do talk about these like infinite factories. What do they talk about? I think it's G. Uh, yeah, the make anything machine. Um, I don't quite understand how this works. I have to like learn a lot about these wires and how this works, but basically, from what I understand, there's a global receiver that will, where is it? Wire, global wire receiver, right? So there's this thing. They have channels, random operator shape 0, right? And then if I connect a little wire to it, I should see the shape. Yeah, there you go. So from that, you're supposed to be able to build the shape, and basically using logic gates and comparisons. And then there's the simulator buildings where I don't really understand, but I guess, I mean, I'll try. But yeah, maybe. This was really fun to play to this point. I don't know if I'm actually going to commit to making this machine that does the random things, but it's a fun and interesting challenge. I might do it. Nevertheless, here's a nice overview of everything. This is a really fun game to play.